Hello and welcome to Non-Dual Therapy. In this video, I will be discussing a 5-MeO malt trip I had recently. Now this was 22 milligrams. Leading up to the experience, I was a bit nervous doing this experience. My 20 milligram experience was quite large, and I was expecting another large experience, so leading up to this, I was a bit anxious toward the experience. Now, I fasted for 8 hours leading up to taking the medicine, and I also took ginger prior to the experience. In comparison to the 20 milligram experience, there wasn't very many visuals. And by visuals, there's not really any visuals when I take this medicine, but in my last experience, there was a lot of tracers. So when I moved my hand, there was like a lot of tracers behind it. But in this experience, it was very centered. It was very focused on being centered and still. And in comparing the 20 milligram experience to this one, the 20 milligram experience was a lot of surrendering, whereas this experience was very empowering. Yeah, it kept showing me that I am infinite. I am God, I am infinite. And my prior experience to that, I kept having to surrender to it. Whereas this one, I was like realizing it over and over that I am it. Now through this experience, there was a lot of movement in symmetry. As I've shown, that's usually what happens, almost always. However, in this experience, there was little to no thoughts. Like I would have thoughts, don't get me wrong, but there was very long stretches of where just no context to the movements. It was just, the movements were just happening and the mind is absolutely silent. I did have a realization on the medicine that what I'm actually looking for is not the medicine itself. It sounds quite obvious to me when I say this, however, there must have been some form of illusion there where what I was looking for was in the medicine and it's not. What I'm looking for, I don't need the medicine. But it is a tool and I continue to use it to help me and aid me in my search for myself, my quest to become self-actualized. Now, many times throughout this experience, I felt like I was at a crossing point where I could choose to go down either avenue of being Josh or being God, and both of those, I could hold those simultaneously, those viewpoints I could hold simultaneously. But in this experience, usually I go down one side and then I'm thrown into the other. I go down this Josh rabbit hole of letting go, and then I finally reach the breaking point, and then I break open to infinity, and then I'm God. That's how it usually happens for me. However, in this experience, I was able to hold the space of Josh and hold the space of God simultaneously. And if I were to deviate in one direction too far, like if I went down the Josh path a little too far, I would be course corrected and I would come back to the center and hold both of these viewpoints. And the same with God. If I would go down the God viewpoint a little too far, a little deviated, a little too far, it would just, boom, I'd just be brought right back to the center and I could hold both of these. Now, I am God all the time, no matter if Josh is here or not. However, I can allow Josh to be here and there's nothing wrong with that. So at this point, I decided to do my breathing. Just the same as last time, I did one round, and at the end of it, it wasn't quite as dramatic as the last one. The last one I worked through a pretty big block that I had, but this time it was much less dramatic, but it was still very powerful. I was able to enter that non-dual space and the energy was ramped up within my body. Now, about 10 or so minutes after my breathing, I started to get a little bit nauseous. Now, I've heard from multiple practitioners that when they're working with clients, if the person starts to feel nauseous, that's the time to take more medicine. And I had this thought while I was feeling nauseous. And so I wasn't going to take any more medicine. However, with the breathing that I do, it is just like taking the medicine. At least that's what the outcome is. So I decided to do more breathing. And sure enough, I had another breakthrough and the nausea went away. So that was lovely. It worked. But then about 10-15 minutes later after that, the nausea came back. And at this point, I decided that the breathing wasn't going to help. I'm using it as a tool to push the nausea away. So I just allowed it to be, and it built up, and eventually I did vomit. It was gut-wrenching. It hurt a lot. It was coming from the pit of my stomach, and a lot came out. I haven't thrown up on psychedelics in, God, I can't even tell you, 2, 3, maybe 4 years. I don't know. It's been a long time. But going through that was necessary, and it felt good. It felt really good. After the fact. During it, really sucked. Don't get me wrong. But after that, when I was in the bathroom, I was washing my face and, I thanked myself for the experience. After I finished up in the washroom, I came back to lie on the mat, and I lied there for a couple minutes, but there wasn't really anything there. So the medicine had concluded. Went upstairs and my wife was there and we ended up talking for a bit, and I was sharing my experience with her, and then she kept giving me all these like truths where like I couldn't argue with them. I couldn't like navigate my way around them or out of them. It was just exactly what I needed to hear. So I still think the medicine was still working at that point. However, it's just a different environment. I did go upstairs and have a shower after the interaction, and I had a realization in the shower. It was quite nice. It's like, I've been at this for quite a long time. I've had hundreds of sessions with medicine. I've been doing this symmetry thing for a while, and I feel like I've got it down. Like, I can't really convey my experience very accurately in these videos, but when I'm in the session, I just know it on a different level, and it just makes sense to me. So after the last couple experiences that I've had, I actually did the releasing on the medicine energetically. So there was no need for integration. Now that, coupled with actually having cannabis as a tool in case I do feel that I need to integrate, I have that as a backup just in case. So all of that combined, and how I've been doing and how I'm able to remain calm, and through the experiences that I've had, I've been quite balanced and centered, and just all of it combined into one thing. And I finally feel confident that I am doing the sessions properly. And what I mean by properly is that I'm using psychedelics as a tool for self-discovery. Having a big release on medicine, just throwing up, just getting it out. And there was no thoughts with it. There was no attachment to it. It was just something that needed to happen. And I just let it out. And after the experience, there was nothing to integrate. So that was my 22 milligrams. I built it up to be something bigger than it definitely was. I certainly don't recommend anyone start with 22 milligrams. That is a very big dose in my opinion. I would recommend starting a lot lower than that and building their way up. I started with 14, then I went 16, then I went 18, then I went 20, and then now I'm at 22. Anyway, that's all I've got for today's video. Thanks for watching. If you've made it this far and found value in this video, please give it a thumbs up. As always, I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.